I thought the first 45 minutes were some of the best football I've ever seen a Bayern Munich team play. They hammered this PSG side. They were utterly dominant. Luis Diaz with an incredible performance. Enough chances to go into halftime with a 4-0 lead, at least. Serge Gnabry, I think, had a couple chances too, right, that he should have scored. And then just ahead of the break, Luis Diaz, and I think this is the most justified red card in the history of football, Stefan. I don't even know why we need VAR for this. It's from behind. It's reckless. It's dangerous. There's no chance to play the ball. People said, like, look, the referee had time to look at this because Hakimi was injured. This is a referee who was suspended in Italy, and I think it showed in this situation why. Or demoted, I think, right? He's demoted from Serie A at the moment.
I think he's a temporary suspension right now.
Yeah, temporary suspension.
Yeah.
Yet somehow UEFA still let him do this game, which, I actually think. You said like, oh yeah, well, remember we chatted a little bit, and he's like, oh, he's been okay in the first half, like, he spotted this red card, and I'm like, well, VAR did. He didn't. And then it took 5 minutes for them to come to this conclusion, and he also missed the and it didn't ultimately matter, but the João Neves goal, like, Ramos is clearly in an offside position, in passive offside position, but becomes active because it is in Neuer's view. I mean, these are these tiny things that bother me so much. But I think the red card for Luis Diaz was justified. But Bayern Munich take this incredible first half performance, with a 2-0 lead into the second half, and then the second half they have to show something that they haven't had to show this year, right? They had to show resilience. Really face adversity. I mean, the only game that maybe came a little bit close was the second half against Dortmund, where there was times where it looked like they were going to finally drop points, but then didn't. This game too, they really had to work really hard. I thought it was impressive that they outran PSG despite being a man down by 3 kilometers. We have to talk about running statistics and how that will impact Bayern Munich towards the end of the season. It's been a big discussion point in one of our chats as well today, Stefan. But like the fact that they had a halftime where they absolutely dominated one of Europe's best teams, and then had a second half where they had to show a completely different face and still managed to get a win, the 16th win in a row now. They're rewriting history books. I thought it was very impressive.
Yeah, Bayern were incredibly impressive. I think, as you said, that first 45 minutes is the best I've seen Bayern play in a long time. It was a really kind of ballsy, gung-ho approach. It seems as though Kompany just said to his players, right, I want you guys to man mark your opposite number and just follow them around the pitch. And we had bizarre situations where you had both Jonathan Tah and Upamecano kind of following Dembele or whoever else in the middle of the pitch into the middle of the park. They were literally shadowing them over the halfway line. And then you had kind of Leimer and Stanisic kind of drifting in, or Pavlovic and Kimmich kind of moving back. And the whole kind of formation seems built around that, because it wasn't the kind of Bayern that we've seen in recent years. I guess last season, actually, in a sense of like Kompany demanding, just I could tell you're in Germany because I could hear you opening that sparkling water there. The well-known sound of any German hotel room is the tiss of a sparkling water bottle opening. But it wasn't like it wasn't the tactics of last season, where Kompany was almost fixated on playing this kind of tiki-taka possession style football. He kind of had this kind of reputation of being, one of Pep Guardiola's disciples, and at times I think it actually caused Bayern quite a lot of troubles last year. The game that always stands out to me is that Aston Villa match in England, where I thought Villa kind of tactically kind of got the better of Bayern that day. In this game, Kompany kind of threw that all, out the window and said, no, do you know what? We're just going to harass PSG off the pitch. We're going to gegenpress them. We're going to press them off the pitch. And it worked tremendously well because Bayern had that really dynamic, really quick, really switched on back line. Konrad Laimer can run for days. He's obviously very, very fast, so he's more than happy to play high line. Upamecano, I thought, looked like a pig in shit in terms of the way he played last night. He looked so comfortable, he looked so happy, he looked so content with playing that high line and harassing opposing players and then kind of swooping in and kind of mopping up long balls over the top. Jonathan Tah also very comfortable, and then Stanisic, who's kind of like this kind of left-sided. He's obviously playing left back, but he's more like another central defender and was more than happy to kind of drop in as well. And then in the middle of the pitch, you had Harry Kane kind of dropping back into kind of midfield. You had Serge Gnabry playing almost as a kind of false number 9. And it just felt very fluid. It felt very dynamic. It felt like Bayern were able to just basically, whatever PSG offered, Bayern were able to react to it. And yeah, man, it was more or less a perfect performance. You know, Bayern probably should have went in 3 or 4 goals up at half time. And it was definitely a case of them saying, you know, coming to Paris and saying, we are here to stake a claim for this season's Champions League. You know, that's kind of literally exactly what I said. Actually, I wrote a reaction piece for Transfermarkt, and the headline that I went with was "Kompany stakes claim for greatness as Bayern aim for Champions League dominance." You know, and it's the kind of result that makes people around Europe kind of sit up and pay attention to what Bayern are doing, because I think a lot of people would be saying, "Oh well, Bayern are walking to their Bundesliga title. What else is new?" But it's when we get to this stage of the season, when they start playing kind of bigger teams in the Champions League, that we get a good measure of them. And I think there'll be some at PSG who would make arguments that it wasn't the strongest PSG team. Dembele was rushed back from injury, Hakimi went off injured, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, I thought Bayern blew PSG out of the water last night. And if not for Luis Diaz's kind of really reckless tackle, I think it would have been a very comfortable win in the end.